right, good afternoon, everybody. That was incredibly weak. Good afternoon, everybody. There we go. All right, I think that was the first golf clap that we've had to start Tech Tuesday. We'll take it. In the spirit of unity, you all know I like to do things that bring us all together. I just want to remind half of our attendees in here that Auburn is still the #1 basketball team in the nation. War Eagle, but in the spirit of unity, roll tide, and we are in Birmingham, so go Blazers. There we go. All right, so he liked that one, right? Just wanted to say thanks again for you all coming out today. Obviously, the attendance is reflective of the stellar cast that we have joining us. It is not hyperbole to say that these individuals who will be gracing the stage are responsible for a lot of the growth, a lot of the innovation and improvement, not just in the city, in this region, but across the state. So super honored to have them join, and just, again, grateful for you all to be spending time with us. I'll try to be brief, but first I want to acknowledge our Tech Birmingham board members. If you're in the room, just quick hand in the sky and make sure that we can acknowledge you all. Again, round of applause for them, y'all, if you can. The behind the scenes work that they do to make sure that we can carry out our mission and still remain small but mighty as a team is commendable. So I'm grateful, but I know the ecosystem is as well. So thank you all. Got to give a quick shout out to DJ Mary Wallace back there on the ones and twos for Regions. Hey, Mary Wallace. Regions obviously is our sponsor of Tech Tuesday, longtime partners, not just in this work, but all throughout our engagements and our activities. So we got some really cool stuff cooking. So make sure you come to the next one. Next Tech Tuesday, we'll give you all some peeks and insights. Also, we do have opportunities for others who are looking to sponsor Tech Tuesday at a different level or any other engagement. So make sure you connect with me or Anna or Jared before you leave. And also, I'll be remiss if I did not encourage you all to sign up as members. A lot of people have joined this Tech Tuesday who are not members of Tech Birmingham. These are free if you are a member. It also comes with additional benefits. So I want to make sure that you know that. Whoever is over that decision, feel free to lift that up. If you need material to share, more than happy to provide that. Two events that I want to point out. One is our LGBTQ affinity group that you all know, Tech Equals. They are having their Rainbow Ventures Summit, and that's going to be coming up February 22nd. Our affinity groups, this one in particular, really seeks to give voice and visibility to our members who are in the LGBTQ plus community and also in tech. They've been doing it for a number of years. I believe this is the first one that they've changed the name, but it has taken off. So I want to make sure that you all are aware of that. It's open for everybody. But there is going to be an emphasis on entrepreneurship as well. So keep that on the radar. And then we also have on February 26th, another affinity group, BWIT, Birmingham Women in Technology. They will be hosting their Elevate and Empower conference. It's a half-day summit that's going to be taking place at UAB. So again, make sure those are on your radar. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. I believe Ronit's in here as well, so she might be. Okay, not Ronit. Take all questions to Ronit, as a matter of fact. So. But no, we'll all be around to answer questions if you have them. Like I said, the events are on the website, and of course, make sure you save the date. It is far out in June, but it is going to be here before we know it. SLOS Tech 2025. Last year we had just shy of 1,000 registrations. I tell you, it is one of my greatest joys when I go across the nation for whatever activity or speaking engagement, and people come up to me sharing that they know about SLOS Tech. So it truly is not just an opportunity for us to lift up the entire ecosystem, to celebrate the wins, to create community, but it's an opportunity for us to share what it is that we're doing to those outside of Birmingham, outside of the state, and truly serve as a magnet to bring them in, to make them aware of what it is that we're trying to build in this ecosystem. So make sure you save the calendar for that. SLOS.tech is the website. And with that said, we'll go ahead and set the stage for our panel. the discussion is really going to center around the state of the ecosystem. And I hope that is not, I hope that's not taken as a passive thing. What I want to leave you all with is an encouragement to think about what the state of our current ecosystem is and what our individual roles in it will be to advance it, to move it forward. We all have a unique role to play. And so be thinking about that. We're going to have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. But with that said, we'll go ahead and start welcoming up our panelists. I guess if you all can get seated in order of the photos on the screen, leaving that one on the left for me. And as we welcome them up, I'll also point out that we're going to be doing, it's probably too early to announce it right now, but I want you all to be thinking about additional events that are lacking, that we don't have right now in the ecosystem. There are some that we are considering to roll out at Tech Birmingham, but want to make sure that we are taking your voice and your ideas into account as well. So as Cynthia just takes my seat. That's
We're just going to sit here.
all right, that'll work. We'll do it like, they do not listen to me, clearly, right? If you want to get ahead in life, don't listen to me. Right, it's innovation. And last thing, that QR code that we have up here, make sure you, matter of fact, pull it up when you can before we get started, just so it's on your phone. But we're looking for your insights and your input as well. And with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. So give me a moment to go ahead and join our panelists here. And let's see, let's go ahead and cut this on. Can you all hear us okay? Awesome, fantastic. So as I mentioned earlier, right, this is really about the state of the ecosystem, but I want to make sure that we level set and have proper expectations, and that you all are familiar with the individuals who are on this stage and the work that they are doing. I wish I was able to share their bio on what they have done, but it is incredibly extensive and I would do it disservice. So if you all could just maybe take about 30 seconds to a minute. Obviously the basics, who you are, what you're over, what you're doing in the ecosystem, and then we'll come back and start opening up our conversation.
Awesome. My name is Tisha Cable. I'm the CEO of C-Model Data. C-Model is a company that relocated to the Birmingham area about a year ago. We have a decision intelligence company, which is the last mile for artificial intelligence. So we combine analytics and human intelligence with AI. My role in the ecosystem is, one, as a business. We're a startup, several years old, funded by various entities in Birmingham and Alabama. And also we serve as a part of the facilitation team that pulls together businesses and all of the support organizations that support those businesses here in Alabama.
Thank you, Tisha.
My name is Patrick J. Murphy. It's great to be here. Good afternoon. I've been in Birmingham for 6 years. I spent 20 years building a career in Chicago. My wife and I never thought we'd leave, and then UAB recruited me down here to build the best entrepreneurship program in the country. And I think we really do, and this is, you can put me on record for this, have the best curriculum in the country right now. I'm very familiar with what all the other universities are doing. I've dabbled in entrepreneurship, but I'm a scholar at heart. Horse racing, I've had 3 racehorses. I ran a training and breeding venture for 10 years. I was the board president of a large social enterprise in Chicago called the Chicago Cultural Alliance. I lived in China in the 90s. I speak Mandarin Chinese, and pretty much everything I've done over the last 25 years has been with entrepreneurs 24/7. Like I said, I'm a scholar at heart. I wrote a book that Yale published, and I published a lot of research papers, and I'm really proud of what we've done at UAB, but especially in this community, because we couldn't have done it without this community. We get 4 or 5 calls every single week from around the world and around the country. I was in Madrid 2 weeks ago, and I just got back from Las Vegas last night doing this work, carrying the Birmingham flag. So it's great to be here, and we're very optimistic about the future, and I'll probably talk in some more detail about the specific work we're doing when we get into the Q&A. Thanks.
Thanks, Patrick.
I don't want to follow him.
What a flex, right?
So good, afternoon. My name is Cynthia Crutchfield. I'm the CEO of Innovate Alabama. I am a native Alabamian. I grew up in Montgomery and moved to the Birmingham area about 2 years ago after a very long career in, let's say, the federal market space, both public and private. Very long time. What are you laughing at, Matt? So I'm a software engineer by trade. Economic development is fairly recent for me within the last 2.5 years. So I'm taking a lot of my experience and knowledge from that area, applying it to economic development within the state. So far, so good. I think we're doing okay. We definitely have lots more work to do. But we're excited to be here today and glad to be here. And hopefully we'll have some good questions from you guys.
You can go ahead and say it like, go Bulldogs.
So I wasn't going to say it because, like, I'm sitting back there going, certainly he's going to say go Bulldogs. But
I was waiting
I'm
on it.
afraid I don't have any Bulldogs in the room. But if for my friend, if I say it, you guys should just respond, go Bulldogs.
Go Bulldogs.
There we go.
I'm Matt Hoddle with Red Hawk Advisory. We manage venture capital funds that are focused on either impact or economic development. We have currently 35 companies in our portfolio that we help to manage or directly manage. Yeah, I think that's probably it. That's enough, right?
Yeah, he's selling himself short, but and Matt, I don't know if you might have just mentioned it, but Alabama Futures Fund, it was the largest early stage seed investment fund at Alabama's time. It probably still is, if I'm not mistaken, right? $25 million. So nothing to sneeze at, right? And I lifted.
I think Cynthia is like clawing at the heels of that, though.
Cynthia's crushing it. Matter of fact, I'll actually take a detour, Cynthia, and go to you because, Innovate Alabama has, in very short order, played a pivotal and a critical role in this ecosystem. To wit, they were the presenting sponsor for Sloss Tech. So all of the expansion, moving to multiple days, multiple venues, 200 kids in early career STEM advocates, if you will, get free access to Sloss Tech. And again, that is because of Innovate Alabama. I actually ran into somebody not too long ago, and they said they got they made hires because of the kids that were able to come to Sloss Tech, right? And so, like, all of this stuff ties in together, and they have a fascinating history in how it started. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm blowing smoke, but they have really changed the game. And whether it's through their tax credit program, whether it's through their HBCU engagement. And so seeing as how it's kind of one of the newer organizations, I think it'd be a good way to lay a foundation for the conversation. So Cynthia, if you could maybe just unpack a little bit about what you all are doing, and if you even want to lead with your vision for where you see this being able to go.
Sure, that's a lot, but we'll see. So Innovate Alabama is a fairly, I call us a startup. We've been around for just over 2 years. We were born out of the Alabama Innovation Commission. Really great, important work. Thanks for all the work that was done by that commission. It really sort of laid the foundation for us in terms of our mission and the work that we do every day, with a focus on developing tech companies within the state of Alabama and then supporting those companies either by providing talent or access to talent, by providing capital resources, and then building really an entire ecosystem around those companies. So that's really where we put our focus. Let's see, after the first year when I came on board, I think we had rolled out just one program, the SBIR STTR Supplemental Grant Funding Program, which is a very critical program, and I think it sort of laid the foundation for the work, for the rest of the work that we've accomplished over the last few years. So think of the organization, not going to get into a lot of detail, but think of the organization as really an enabler. We really don't go out and start a lot of programs ourselves. What we try to do is find pockets across the state that are performing, whether you're an accelerator, incubator, investor, entrepreneur, talent. We work with universities 2 and 4 years. We really try to pour into those organizations to help build the ecosystem within the state of Alabama. again, with an eye towards making sure that entrepreneurs, our founders, have the support that they need as they go on that entrepreneurial journey.
Too early to talk about your vision?
Oh, oh my goodness, but depends on how far out. I would like for us to, if I were to fast forward, say, I don't know, 5 years from now, I would like us to not be in the place where we have to worry about startup capital. I would like for us to be mature enough within our ecosystem that we are self-sustaining. And what I mean by that is not just the entrepreneurs, the founders, the investors, but also the ecosystem that supports them. Ultimately, view our funding as seed funding, with the idea that, you know, at some point you're going to figure it out and off you go. It's like, go forth and do great things. So in a perfect world, that's the way we would look. We have some key programs, I think, that are setting the stage for that in terms of making sure that we take the investments that we do have, turn those over so that those funds are sustaining. I could talk about SSBCI and our first iteration of that program. I think that we missed the mark in that we didn't require those funds to return to the state and be reinvested in companies. And then the other thing on that program is we did not do, for whatever reason, I have no idea, I wasn't here, but I think we didn't have maybe the stomach for venture investing. And I think that's really important for the state if we're going to build our ecosystem going forward. So a lot of the work that we've done is really trying to figure out how to get investors in the state to invest more in technology companies, not just real estate, and then attracting investors outside of the state to come into the state and invest in Alabama companies. So I think we're on our way. We have a long way to go, but I think we've made great progress. We just need to keep the foot on the gas.
Thank you for that. I'll actually use that as a segue to come to you, Matt. I look at you as somebody that's kind of been on the ground doing a lot of this work before it was fashionable, if that's an appropriate way to describe it. And I feel like you've been able to do a lot more with less, right? I mean, Tisha Cable, right? I mean, going down the list of the companies and the people that are here because of your impact. And so I would love it if you could just set the stage for how it was. One, just to kind of give us a bit of optimism, right? I think without some perspective, it's hard for us as a city and state to know where we fall in terms of, you know, are we progressing? How fast? What are the opportunities? So if you can paint a little bit of that picture. And then just let us know, like, what is it that you see in the ecosystem right now where if we just poured a little bit of gas on that fire that could really help us to amplify and accelerate?
Yeah, so probably in the numbers, I can represent this the best. When we started the Alabama Futures Fund, we told all of our investors that we were only going to invest in companies that were headquartered here or willing to relocate their headquarters here. Because they looked at us and they go, we don't know how you're going to deploy $25 million into this ecosystem, into the state's ecosystem as it sat at the time. And it's a lot of what Cynthia just talked about, which is the development of entrepreneurs and startups into quote unquote venture scalable companies had only just begun. Yeah, we had some outliers and we had some incredible wins. We had Shipped. Is still in its infancy, but developing therapy brands, Fleetio, Hospice Link, others, right? I'm leaving out some, I apologize. But that was it. And most of those companies were by definition breakout. So when we went out and we were trying to deploy, you know, this money in that thesis with that geographic component, we had to recruit from outside. So we ended up with 16 of the companies in that portfolio of 20 that were recruited from somewhere else. And that wasn't just Atlanta or Nashville or Mississippi or Florida, no disrespect to those, but they were from San Francisco. And they were from New York, and they were from London, and they were from Istanbul, right? And one of the things that we watched during that only 5 years, because I want to put this in context, that was over a 5-year period. If we were to do Fund 2 and start that today, the number of venture scalable companies that now exist in Alabama is probably 3 to 4 times higher than it was only 5 years ago. And I say only 5 years ago because we have a bad habit of looking at things in startups in too short a time frame, right? People say things like, well, Silicon Valley took 100 years. I'm not making that number up. That's not hyperbole. 100 years to go from producing plums and prunes, to being Silicon Valley, right? Austin took 50 years to become Austin, right? And then even smaller ones like Boulder. Boulder took 20 years to become Boulder. So we still have a long way to go, but the progression that we had in 5 years, and a lot of the people on stage here are responsible for that. The work that Patrick's doing, that UAB's doing, entrepreneurship as a discipline did not exist prior to Patrick getting here. And he has tirelessly promoted not only his program and UAB, but Birmingham and the Alabama ecosystem. And I'm ready to start the Cynthia Crutchfield fan club if anybody wants to sign up. Was already a fan, but I'm thinking about running for president now, so see me afterwards for the work, because her vision's fantastic. So I think if we can continue to think in those terms, we're good. Now, a word of caution. We took a major step back last year, okay? I have notes. So just to give you some numbers, right? Alabama last year, okay, for 2023, 2 years ago now, there was $338 million worth of venture deals done in the state, okay? Anybody know what it was last year? All of 2024? $81 million. If you're doing the math, that's a 76% reduction in total deal value. Unfortunately, it gets worse because in 2023, the average value of each deal was $7.76 million, which throws it basically in the middle range for venture size deals. In 2024, 2.1, right? We have work to do. And to put it in context, our neighbors in Florida, last year, we did $81 million. They did $3.4 billion. Georgia did $1.3 billion. And Tennessee did $760 million. So, to your point about access to capital and capital supply, we have a lot of work to do. And not to be too reductive, but if we can't come up with that capital supply from places where it didn't exist before or from which it wasn't flowing before, the rest of the work that we do is going to be muted to a degree that I don't think anybody's going to be satisfied with.
I asked you to pour gasoline, not water, sir. But seriously, I mean, it is good for us to have a sober and a realistic look at it, right? Because otherwise, how are we going to know what we need to address and lean in on? So thank you for offering that up. And you actually mentioned 3 cities that I kind of looked at when thinking about some of the questions for this panel. Obviously, Silicon Valley in that region, Boulder, and Austin. And what made me think about them was how critical the educational institutions, in particular, obviously UC, Stanford, and UT Austin, how critical those institutions were to the acceleration of those ecosystems. And so, Patrick, I want to kick it over to you. Can you, kind of similarly how Matt and Cynthia did, paint the picture before you got here and what it is that you are doing, and also just how critical UAB's role is in this. And personally, I'm interested in how has that changed, or will it change given just the dynamic landscape right now that we're seeing, whether it's in computer science, AI, just the impact that all of that is going to have on your work and what it is that you're trying to build.
No, great question. And I appreciate Matt's comments about the history. And I'm going to talk a little bit about think global and act local and the importance of that when I close out my comment here. But all of those places he mentioned, you're talking about ecosystems in which entrepreneurship is downstream from local culture. And entrepreneurship needs to be downstream from local culture. Silicon Valley, I would say Shockley Semiconductor was really the sort of genesis of that, and they were all engineers, and you see that today. Similar thing in Austin and the Denver. Like when you look at ecosystems that are very robust, the way they do it reflects the underlying culture. I agree. I think it's early days here in this ecosystem. I think the gap that I see involves embracing the culture. I think that embrace is complicated by some of the maybe darker periods in the history. I've heard the way people talk about the culture and the history here, you know, things come into it that are tragic, but entrepreneurs view tragedy as opportunity. I mean, 1871 in Chicago was named after a fire that burnt the entire city down and killed all kinds of people, and they had to rebuild. When you see tragedy or dark times, including the numbers that Matt mentioned, or even something like in the pandemic, I mean, a lot of people don't know, but business license applications increased by 100% during the pandemic. I think it was 2023. Tragedy yields opportunities, and entrepreneurship runs on opportunities. It's a mindset. That's what we teach. That's what world-class entrepreneurship programs teach. There's a mindset for looking at a problem as if it's an opportunity, and it's hard to teach. I mean, you may think that, you know, I'll be honest with you, people who have done it, who have been entrepreneurs, it's like learning bad habits in golf, and when you play golf, and not having a good teacher to break you those bad, you're biased, buddy. I mean, if you can't see 50 different sectors and know that the dominant assumptions in this sector are actually hostile to the dominant assumptions in that sector, you're biased, and you lean in on your experience. So what we're doing and what we've been able to do, again, thanks to the support of this community, is build a major in entrepreneurship. There's about 5,200 colleges or universities in this country. I would estimate maybe, I'd say less than 300 actually have a bachelor's degree in it. There's 59 or 60 colleges or universities in our state. I know of 4 that have a bachelor's degree. And what that allows you to do is embed entrepreneurship into the curriculum. So students can come in and they can make entrepreneurship everything around their education and their major. And we have all these different classes. We have a phenomenal curriculum. I'm not going to go through all the classes, but check it out. We have social enterprise required in our curriculum, which is really rare, and it really ties into what the upcoming generation is doing. But we didn't have that when I got here, Dion. Entrepreneurship at UAB was all about medical devices. And it was very engineering based, which is great. I mean, that's the strength of the institution, and it's something that we need to build on. However, if you look at this ecosystem, you have people starting barbershops and restaurants and bars and cafes and little boutique consulting firms, and we hear from them every single week, and they need a mindset that helps them think about how they can capitalize on a problem and turn it into an opportunity. So the first thing I did when I got here in 2018 was I started putting the major together, and I don't know if you guys love bureaucracy or if you're familiar with them. Some of you probably work at UAB, but that's a big bureaucracy at UAB. Now, I learned how to deal with the bureaucracy. You know, I worked at a Catholic institution in Chicago, which is like a 900-year-old bureaucracy, and then the city of Chicago itself has its own bureaucratic dynamics. And you have one institution embodying both of those. The UAB bureaucracy is friendly and it's transparent. It's friendly and it's transparent. We were able to get things done in a year that take a lot of my colleagues much longer. So we've done it with the support of the community and the support of the institution, and then now people are showing up. So we have folks coming in from Decatur, we have folks coming in from Fairhope, we have folks coming in from other countries and other states. I get calls from students at NYU and Princeton because they don't even really have business majors at those institutions, much less entrepreneurship. And they're just curious about what we're doing because they met one of our students at a conference or something. All of that is new. And I think it's not just our ecosystem, which I'm going to come back to the Think Global, Act Local thing, but it's the new generation that's coming up. Gen Z. I taught millennials for 20 years. This new generation is different. They're all over the board. And I have a theory about it. I think it's because they are the first ones that grew up with actual information technology that worked and is reliable, meaning they can research what they want to research and ignore what they don't want to look at, and therefore forge a strong sense of identity and be comfortable and accustomed to their identity, which embeds diversity of the entrepreneurs and competence in oneself into their vision of their life's path. And so the millennials were not like that. Gen Z is like that, and they've been showing up for our program, which, by the way, is over the last 4 years, we are one of the fastest growing programs at the university. So I'll just close with this, and I'll come back to Think Global, Act Local. You got to put the numbers into relative context. You got to standardize these metrics that we talk about, whether it's dollars or number of people. We're a small ecosystem. I think Chicago's like 10 times bigger than Birmingham. We had a room at 1871. We have a room at Innovation Depot now. Innovation Depot is actually better than 1871. I don't know if people realize that or not, but I want to recognize the team who has built that community over there, built it out and developed it. I worked out of 1871 for years. That is a real nice community for entrepreneurs. And we're over there a lot. We're working with, anyway, I have 2 students I want to mention. One of them makes $12 million a year. He just graduated for our program last year. His business is a $12 million business. He makes $2 million a year. I've never had a student that successful in all the years I've been doing this. I have another one the year before him running a 7-figure business. I mentioned Decatur earlier. We have students that are coming in, and the reason we're able to do this and cater to them and serve them and stop them from dropping out, which is what they usually do, whether it's Michael Dell or Zuckerberg, I mean, that's usually what they do, because we let them make their businesses their class projects, and we teach into the ecosystem. We couldn't do it without Birmingham. Tuscaloosa and Huntsville aren't even in the same ballpark as we are because of Birmingham, because of the density of the ecosystem and the entrepreneurs around us. 80% of the new jobs come from the entrepreneurial sector. Well, those firms can't wait 6 months for someone to get up to speed. They want people who can add value right away. That's what we teach our students to do. So if you're, 5 out of 100 are going to start 7-figure businesses, but the other 95, we need to place them with local firms. UAB wasn't doing any of that, and we won that national award in 2022. We were named the top emerging program in the country, simply because we're building on the strengths of Birmingham and Generation Z and local culture. And the Think Global, Act Local thing, if you want to ask, I'm very optimistic about what we're doing here, but if you want to ask me about what we need to do better, we need to get better at thinking globally. We're very good at acting locally, which is what you want to do. We need to get better at thinking globally. Our thinking is a little bit too inward-looking and provincial right now. Now, Chicago has bigger problems. You do not want Chicago problems. Chicago is great at thinking global, but they act global. Man, you will gentrify your ecosystem out of existence if you act global because all money is the same to you. We're very good at that, and for an ecosystem, it's easier to make an ecosystem think global. It's harder to make a person change the way they think, but we're doing it, and I think we're not moving the needle. We're recalibrating the gauge because we're a supply-side solution to these demand-side problems that we're talking about here today through the students that we're rolling out, and some of them are here today. I appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Thank you for that. I want to stick with you just a little bit longer because you said something that just really resonates with me about how we shy away sometimes from the cultural aspect of it. And if I could be more direct, the civil rights history that we have, I always like to tell people that, what happened is not so much a black eye as it is a badge of honor, right? And I say that because it was this city and this state that started to turn the tides. Obviously leading to the 64 Civil Rights Act, the 65 Voting Rights Act, and I think we should lean into that a bit more and take it with a point of pride. How much does that cultural aspect tie into your work, your ability to recruit students? I'm just curious from your perspective.
I've had more authentic conversations about diversity here than I ever had in the city of Chicago. The city of Chicago, as I say, entrepreneurship is downstream from culture. You need to understand how the mob works if you really want to get things done in Chicago. Street tax became exorbitant business taxes. Juice loans became payday loans. There's just a lot of stuff. The numbers became the lottery. There's a lot of stuff that the mob did that was illegal that has become today a kind of sanitized version of what it was. It's very subtle. I believe that the civil rights movement has the same effect on how we deal with things here. And we can use it as a kind of strength if we lean into it. Like I said, I have had more authentic conversations about diversity here than I ever had in the city of Chicago. I mentioned I was just in Las Vegas. I was at the big conference that we hosted here last January 2024 that brought a bunch of people here. They did the civil rights tours. We had a lot of sessions related to diversity. You can't talk about diversity if you're going to cloak everything in political correctness and, niceties. You've got to be able to speak authentically, and that's what, in my experience, what I've been able to do here. So I think if I think about the future of this ecosystem, I think that leads to something that looks more like social enterprise, which is fee-based revenue and earned income. It's not nonprofit work. And social enterprises, by the way, I know we love technology here, they are the most technologically enabled or high-tech ventures in the world. Creative Commons, SpaceX, crowdfunding, crypto, all of them have denominations of value that are social in terms of how they measure impact, and they are the bleeding edge technology ventures. So to me, that's our future.
Thank you for that. Sticking with culture, what was it about the cultural aspects of Birmingham, Tisha, that kind of, I guess, attracted you or at least opened you up to being here? And has that played a role in the work that you're doing now?
So I'll say, so coming here, I didn't really have any expectations around culture. I didn't have any deep understanding of what I'd experienced when I got here. And I came and spent just a few days and had a wonderful experience meeting people and kind of seeing that at least there was going to be a helping hand for my company. But being here, what I've experienced is more of a willingness, like a true drive to support businesses. People really wanting to understand what the needs are of different businesses in different parts of the ecosystem, kind of starting to dig a little bit deeper into what some of the challenges might be for a company. So I had no foresight. I had nothing in front of me that said it's going to look like this when you get to Birmingham. But being here, I've really had an opportunity to say that I think the biggest charm are people. And people's ability to sort of dig in. I could point out a few different instances of that just here in this room. So our company is located at the Innovation Depot. I walk down the hallway and there's an abundance of support available for my organization at any given time. I can walk over, we're a former Techstars company. We didn't do Techstars here, but I can go over to Matt's office and talk about product development challenges or issues that we might be having. Kendra Key, who's sitting in the back of this room, is a customer of ours, as is Innovation Depot. Matt, I can call Matt and say, we gotta really deal with this go-to-market strategy, and he'll support and help. We're also invested in by Innovate Alabama. So because I've made it a point to be particularly immersed in the community, I've had an opportunity to take advantage of these relationships that I believed were, I believe they were ripe for someone to come along and start to support and build up. And so I'm more than anything really grateful that what I found, even without expectation, has been that.
Can you go a little bit deeper and maybe selfishly, but kind of describe some of the work that you're doing? I want to make sure people have a proper understanding of what it is that you're bringing and what you've already built.
Yeah. So, I mean, I mentioned a little bit about what our company does, but one thing that I found here is there's a lot of needing to understand where a business is in its journey in order to properly support that business growing from one phase to the next. And so I thought it would make sense. In addition, I mentioned Kendra in the back. I met her. She was working on a project to bring the ecosystem together to regularly to meet and organize how businesses get the support that they need. And so we've been facilitating that process, taking our process, which starts with building trust. And honestly, we couldn't get past that until we actually sat down and talked about what were some of the things that would prohibit trust from being built in the ecosystem that supports businesses here in Birmingham. An example of that is the difference between a tech company and a small business, right? These are the kinds of things that needed to sort of be talked through in a group so that one could understand how those differences impact a company being able to grow. The next is, what's the language that we speak? So keeping in line with this idea of a tech company, versus a small business, you have the exponential nature of growth of an organization and the sustainable nature of growth for a company. Then keeping aligned with that, well, what problems do we actually want to prioritize to start focusing on? It can't be one group of people that actually picks the problem. You actually need to pull all the people in the room together to go, here's a list of the problems that exist in this ecosystem. Which ones do we want to prioritize first? But then before you can prioritize, you have to know, well, what's the criteria for prioritization? What's going to have the most impact in this particular community? So doing the work to really start narrowing those things down and just really supporting the leaders who are already here, who are already so helpful. I just talked about how much help and support we've gotten, and really help to make sure that everyone has like a level playing field of understanding so that the business can truly be helped, because behind that is real and true economic development.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Matt, I want to come to you. One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is how a generation ago, maybe a little bit over, the city, the state was well positioned to take advantage of our density in finance and banking. Literally home to four, Fortune 500 companies, 3 banks literally right across the street. Obviously, we're in a building that is representative of that now. And then even Montgomery with Colonial Bank, I mean, you go on and on. But we were not able to position ourselves in front of that innovation wave that led to fintech, right? And the fintech hubs, Charlotte, Atlanta, and so on and so forth. Do you see an opportunity now for us, given all that is changing, for us to seize that next moment, that next opportunity? If so, what is it? And then what do we need to do as an ecosystem to take advantage of that?
So I want to go back to this idea of culture and entrepreneurship being downstream of culture. If you go back that probably only one generation, Birmingham specifically is probably one of the most entrepreneurial cities in the entire country, either out of necessity or out of circumstance. But somewhere along the way, we consolidated, right? The 4 banks became 2 banks. The 2 banks became 1 bank. We happen to be sitting in that bank right now. And we started to see more and more consolidation. But a generation ago, we had the Stevens family with EBSCO, right? We had Vulcan. We had all of these regional banks or even city-based banks that were started by individuals. We have one now in Commerce One, right? Started by Bill Smith and a bunch of other people. If we can get back to embracing being very good at entrepreneurship and fostering that same level of support for the next generation of folks, we will no longer be trailing behind that innovation. We will be creating that innovation. One of the things I think we, not just as Birmingham, but as a state, should be leaning into is this idea that economic development for the last 60 years has been about job creation here in this state. It hasn't been about generating innovation. It hasn't been about creating technology. And the thing about innovation and technology is it's durable beyond state lines, right? So you act locally, you're thinking globally, because you're creating things, and it's come out of UAB, and it's come out of Shipt, and it's come out of Therapy Brands, and it's come out of Circulogene, and it's come out of these other companies that have innovated technologies that are now worldwide in use and in application. So all we really need to do is stop forgetting our history, re-embrace what we were already incredibly good at, and making that opportunity and that path available for the next generation of people that will reestablish our city and our state as a place for entrepreneurs and innovation to truly flourish.
Thank you for that. Cynthia, I want to toss it over to you, just kind of playing off of that. Again, I think you all have filled a well-identified gap in Innovate Alabama. But is there anything in particular, whether it is the missing middle, for instance, right? We do a lot of early stage support. We have a lot of mature companies like Regions. Is there something within that missing middle that you see as an opportunity for us to move forward?
I think so. So first, I could not agree more, Matt. It's just, the ideas, I think, of moving ourselves forward, trying to make sure that we keep that global view. It's sometimes very difficult. I think we're making progress. We're doing better, but I think we still have, so we have a long way to go. So I call it the gap. I think that if you look at what we've done historically with Innovate Alabama, we've really focused on that early stage. But I do think as we look at where we're going forward, other states, neighboring states, are starting to peel off the companies that we've invested in. And so we really do have to find a way to start making sure that those companies, once they get past that early stage, whether you call it growth or whether you call it sustainment, depending on whether you're a small business, or a venture backable company, it really is very different in terms of how you go about it. So I think the opportunity for us, embrace who we are, what we are, and continue to do the things that we are already doing. I just think we need to do more of it, and I do think we need to do it faster. I don't know. So for the accelerators, incubators in the room, we may be thinking about reprogramming funding so that we're starting to look more at how do we get companies to scale and grow versus just startup. I feel like we've made progress in the startup area, and we really have to get towards, okay, so I've graduated from the accelerator. What happens next? Where's the incubator that's sitting there to say customer acquisition? How do you evolve your product? Things like that. Those are the things that I think we really have to focus on. It's probably going to shake up our ecosystem quite a lot because I think most are settled into the early stage kind of startup investments. But I think we have a couple of opportunities. We've got some programs that I think will give us the opportunity to do that, but still also invest in early stage companies. So I think with the studio that we're looking at, we can keep the foot on the gas in that regard. But I think with SSBCI and some of the other programs that we have, we can start looking at how do we start to scale and grow those programs.
And can I also say this? There's a responsibility that the ecosystem at large has. So these accelerator programs, incubators, entrepreneurship programs, early stage founders, they can set the stage, but the ecosystem at some point in time has to step up. And what do I mean by that? You have to hire them. Bring them on as vendors. All right, for the contract that would be meaningful to an early stage company, for a lot of the companies of size established here, it's a rounding error, right? It's the budget for the copier paper of one floor of their building. Okay, that could be life changing and trajectory altering for an early stage company. So if we want to bring companies here, we want to start companies here, and we want to see them succeed, then everybody has to play a role. And everybody has to look at how am I going to directly support them. And outside of investment, one of the best ways to do that, and most obvious ways to do that, is hire them. Hire them to do work at your company.
Yeah, so let's talk about Tisha. We were just talking about that. Honestly, back in the back of the room, I mean, decision support systems, right? I mean, we all have to make decisions in our organizations, how we do that. Pretty manual for us right now. So we actually are talking about why can't we actually use her company to kind of design that capability for Innovate Alabama versus going out to buy something from someone in Virginia or California. So I do think, to Matt's point, once we have them here, we have to encourage them to stay here. And that customer acquisition piece is really, really, really important. Getting it started, having that initial product is one thing, but really the sustainment, the growth over the long term is really where I think we need to be focused. And so for Innovate Alabama, we are starting to sort of move our focus to that scaling, and how can we start providing more of the mentorship, the support after the early stage.
Standing well said. I'll actually kind of use that as our pivot to close it before we go to questions. Is there anything, Patrick, that we can do in the audience, in the community, to drive toward that?
I think we're doing it, and I say that coming from a perspective. Groupon was to Chicago what Shipped has been to Birmingham, and I was there. I know Andrew Mason. He hired a lot of my students. I remember the conversation. Innovation Depot actually launched before 1871 did, so we were kind of ahead of the game down here. But I can't tell you how many events like this I've been to in Chicago where there's a conversation about the ecosystem. The timbre and the tenor of it here are different because it's critical and it's what must be done. That's how this feels to me. And I think we got it. I mean, I've never been more confident about anything in my life. I think the fact that we're having that kind of critical, constructive conversation versus the way a Chicago event would be, we'd be talking about how awesome we are. We would, and we'd be repeating it, and it would be like no one should think that they're better than us because it's just a totally different feel. And like I said, you don't want Chicago problems. You don't want Chicago problems. We have better problems because we're talking about them as if they're opportunities, which leads me to be very optimistic about this. And I'll close with this. There are two different ways to think global. We talked about a theme up here was think global, act local. Local action means connecting with folks who are here to do deals and transactions. That's local. We're good at that. We don't always do it, but we're good at that. But the thinking global, in my view, is where we're not so good yet. But there's two different ways to think global. One is to be in a moment in time, but look at other places. The other one is to be in a space in one place, but think across time. Meaning, you don't have to go look at Atlanta or New York or Raleigh or anything like that. We can look right here, but we had to look back in time historically. That is a fine way to think global. In fact, the father of the Enlightenment, Immanuel Kant, who's largely responsible for our country because our founding fathers were inspired by Enlightenment philosophy, he was from Königsberg, Prussia, and he probably never went more than 25 miles away from his home. But he changed the way that the entire Western world thinks about the future and solving problems as an Enlightenment philosopher. Small town boy, never went more than 30 miles, I would guess, away from his home. But he was able to think backwards in time. So in Birmingham, we have a rich history that we can dive into and think and grapple with. And that's a fine way to think global. We don't do enough of that, in my opinion. And we're starting to do it more. I'm hearing it today. That makes me even more inspired about where we're headed.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Anything you would like to add to that, Tisha?
I'd add that as we think globally, we think about process and we think about where we are today, where each business, I like to come from the perspective of the businesses themselves, where each business is, and being able to support people based on where they are and then bring them along the journey from one phase to the next phase to the next phase. And then really make our metrics about that, right? And we can measure our progress against that journey. So then we won't be so hyped up when we find that we're not quite, it doesn't look like we're where everyone else is. We're right where we need to be, right? And but we also have the reality of what it means to be right where we need to be and what are all the things that we need to pour into the pot for these companies and these businesses to actually be successful. And I'll say that it matters so much. And it matters so much because when we talk about economic development, it matters to people's lives in real life, right? When you look around Birmingham, you look around Alabama, the success of tech companies like mine means jobs, right? It means that we get to hire people. It means that we get to increase the diversity in the area. It means that we get to make the educational system better, right? There's so many lines of things that come from companies like mine being successful. So it matters to meet us where we are.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Let's see, we have maybe time for 2-3 questions. I saw your hand go up first. For those who do have to leave, I just want to say thank you again. We are posting these to our YouTube channel now, which we haven't been able to do before. So shout out to our new sponsor, Digital Motion, in the back, taking all of the content. Super appreciative of you guys, or not just this, but Sloss Tech and all the other ways that we intersect. So first question, we'll go to you. If you can kind of shout it out, that'd be great.
How do you invest, like as an individual investor, if you wanted to invest in, say, your IRA or something like that, how would you go about doing that?
You want to invest in an IRA?
No, I want to invest in one of, like a fund, a tech fund, a startup tech fund.
Don't. I'm kidding, but I'm not. So there actually are products out there that are widely available to people who want to do it in kind of like Fundrise is one of the examples of them. It's a national fund option. Yeah, it's kind of a crowdfunding, but you're doing private equity investment. Most people probably shouldn't consider being an angel investor, individual investor into a company because of the capital requirements as well as the lack of diversification, right?
You might not be trying to make money. We don't know.
Well, that's true. So Patrick is saying he may not be trying to make money. If you want to be philanthropic, that's another thing. But yeah, so I would say most people actually aren't in a position to be an angel investor. If you do want to go down that road, the two things I would say is be prepared to lose all of it and understand what you're actually investing in and diversify. Do not make single bets.
Anybody else want to take that, or are we good? All right.
Good note, Patrick.
Renee?
Two questions, hopefully it can be short. The first one, what is the one action that you want us to take here to help you? And the second one is, we haven't talked a lot about workforce development and scale. I mean, we talk about that's money and scaling, but what's the plan?
Thank you for that. And just repeating for the recording, what is the one action item or takeaway that we can leave with here? And then if you can talk a little bit more about workforce development as company scale. Patrick?
The one action would be tell as many people as you can in your network, your professional network, about the greatness of this ecosystem and the kinds of things we're doing here. It sounds like a small thing, but it's an easy thing that everybody can do. And the power of weak ties kicks in when you do that. You may tell somebody who can't really do anything, but if you tell them, they may tell 5 other people, and it spreads. I think we're not as good as we need to be at promoting ourselves boldly. And so I would ask everybody in this room to speak proudly about this entrepreneurial ecosystem and the good things that are going on here. That'd be the only thing I would ask. I think that would solve a lot of, it would engage a lot of issues that we're dealing with and move us forward if more people did that. The workforce development piece, just speaking from the perspective of myself and my program, I mentioned earlier we teach into the ecosystem. We believe that theory without practice is pointless and practice without theory is blind. So we have phenomenal concepts and frameworks that we teach. And we don't use textbooks, we don't use PowerPoint, we teach straight out of the research literature, and we teach models and frameworks out of journals that are behind paywalls, but that's 50% of what we need to do. Half of our program and half of the experience is through outreach consulting, team-based outreach consulting to entrepreneurial ventures in the ecosystem. Right now we're working with 10. We have 70 students across 10 teams working with entrepreneurial firms. That is workforce development for us because they learn how to be in a team, they learn how to work with an entrepreneurial venture for whom the dollars and deadlines are real. We measure impact this way because we get memos and reports from the entrepreneurs at the end of the projects that we save. We have about 50 right now that we've done since I've been here. I have about 900 that I did over my years in Chicago. But the students come out of that and it's either an internship or a job, often with the entrepreneur for whom we're doing the project, because the entrepreneurs will spot some talent that they like, and it often leads to that. But you can't learn that just by having a cool conversation in a classroom. When we put them with an entrepreneur directly, that's how we in my program develop the workforce.
Okay, so I'll go next. So a little bit different from us for us. I have one of our partners in the room. Sharice, raise your hand. So again, as I said, we are enablers. We don't really go out and start new programs, but we do work with organizations to make sure that we're reaching our students, kind of like Tisha said, sort of where they are. So we're making sure that those students who are in the state of Alabama for their education, for their 4-year education, that they actually get off of their campuses and get out into not just the city that they're in, but the state. We also have internship programs where they get to work directly with large companies and small companies as well within the state, learning to put in practice the things that they are learning in universities, because oftentimes you go through your curriculum really good at the book stuff that you learn, but you get to the office and you don't know how to apply it. So making sure that they have those, I know, not in your class, in everybody's school except his. Well, yeah, long story. I'm not even going to go there. But just making sure that those students are being touched early. Now, again, our focus is really technology, innovation, but we do have students who are not necessarily in that space that we touch as well. There's a couple of programs that we have that I'd like to talk about just for a minute. The CEO program, where we are teaching high school students. They get $1, they get to go out and invest that dollar to build a company, basically. They can choose whatever they want. They can start a bakery, they can start a power washing business, whatever they want to do. And then they work over the next few months to really develop that company. And I'm telling you, our students are so smart. They already have C Corps in high school. They've already developed apps, like what Tisha's saying that she's doing. They're already doing that. They're already taking artificial intelligence and they're building systems around that. So what we're trying to do is pour into that and make sure that they understand that they actually, cover your ears, they don't have to go to Patrick's program. They can actually graduate from high school and they can start a business right out of high school. I know, I'm so sorry. But seriously,
You're wrong.
I know, I'm sorry. I figured you were going to say that. But an example, the students, we did a competition between Madison and Decatur, where the students in those schools basically started their businesses. They each got $1 to go develop their business. They had to earn at least $100 by the end of the week. And then you take all of those $100 and you pull them together. They actually get to meet with bankers in their communities to pitch their business for the banker to decide if they're going to fund that business. They're working with other business owners who are in that community saying, let me show you how to do this. For one company, he didn't know how to measure. He agreed to do, I think it was the E-Center in Decatur. He was going to power wash their parking lot. And he says, wait a minute, this parking lot goes like all the way from one end to the next, around and back again. I don't have enough money to do that. And so teaching that student how to understand, before you commit to a job, you need to make sure you have the resources. So those programs, I think, really go a long way, because whether we like it or not, everyone's not going to make it into Patrick's program. But we still want to make sure those students who have that entrepreneurial spirit have an opportunity to participate in that broader ecosystem. So those are the things that we're doing. I'm sorry.
I gotta respond to that. I'll
You got
take
30
10
seconds. All right.
Yeah. So I'm very familiar with those programs. It's a little bit dangerous to think that they're enough. Because when you're in a supportive community and people are giving you things and they're aware of it, that's fine. But when the bottom falls out and you need to have the mindset is a discipline. It's like learning a language. It's like learning how to play piano. When you're all alone and you don't have anybody to tell you where to go or what to do, you've got to fall back on something. And if you don't speak the language or know how to transform resources, then you're going to be stuck.
That was 30 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, really. I don't get a rebuttal. No.
Yeah, you can fight Tisha for it.
We're kidding.
Yeah.
That's okay. I just simply want to say, to help us, what we need, we're in a growth phase. So we'd love for each of you to call us so that we can demonstrate for you the value in the solution we have and help you to prepare your organization really for the future of work, because the AI train has already left the station. And so we're here, we're a resource right here, proven, and we can support and help you along that journey. So we'd love to hear from you.
Perfect note to end on. I don't know if you all can stick around. I'm certain we have a lot more questions, but I just do want to thank you all for the time, for the work that you all are doing, and as well as you all in the audience. Everybody is busy right now, so the fact that you will spend this with us and give us your attention, super grateful for. So again, with that said, make sure you check out the website. Make sure you check out their work, and please help me in giving them another round of applause.